500 square meters of nuclear equipment buried deep underground. Today, we will take you inside Iran's most heavily fortified nuclear facility. Trump sends a direct threat towards Tehran. The United States will soon strike Iran's most heavily protected nuclear facility. United States Central Command has struck Iran for the 11th consecutive day, and explosions are being heard across the country. Now, the United States is revealing the objectives of its operation against Iran. Iran sends a threatening message in return to Trump. You will not be able to stop us. And from the Syrian army to a full-scale IDF invasion, the United States is determined to disarm the Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon. Lebanon's president has presented President Trump with a plan to dismantle Hezbollah's military wing. And also, how did Iran rebuild its underground missile cities? Today, we will bring you the story of the Iranian missiles that came back from the dead. An invasion or a ceasefire? The dispute surrounding Iran is dividing the Arab countries. In addition, they feel that the Israeli strikes will trigger a severe Iranian response against them. And the IDF is now revealing that the Hezbollah terrorist organization has turned cemeteries in southern Lebanon into booby-trapped underground terrorist compounds. Hezbollah is collapsing. El-Julani. Hezbollah, the terrorist organization, is collapsing. And El-Julani, and Syria's great revenge, is getting on its way. Syria's secret plan against the Hezbollah terrorist organization is being revealed, and Syrian authorities have intercepted another massive weapons shipment that was on its way to the terrorist organization. And also in the Gaza Strip, Hamas's quiet plan to rebuild its power has been exposed. In response, Israel is building a barrier to cut off the Gaza Strip. And is this the United States' winning card against Tehran? The move that the Arab countries are preparing together with Israel, a doomsday weapon against Iran, in the form of an oil pipeline that will bypass Tehran. Has good news finally arrived to Israel? Trump may use the Abraham Accords to isolate Iran. I'm Yair Pinto. My good friend Mati Shoshani is taking a short vacation to clear his head after intensive work and also reserve duty in the IDF. And this is Boots on the Ground, where we bring you the full truth about what's happening in Israel, as well as the full truth about what's happening in our neighborhood, the Middle East. Today is July 21st, and this is our second and more detailed report covering the road towards destroying Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Today, we will also address what is happening with the Hezbollah terrorist organization and the Hamas terrorist organization. Let's begin. Tonight, Wednesday, United States Central Command announced that it had launched another wave of strikes against the military targets in Iran, the 11th consecutive night of strikes. And according to CENTCOM, the strikes were intended to continue degrading Iran's military capabilities that are being used to attack vessels that are passing through the Strait of Hormuz. The circle of attacks expanded as far as Tehran and Tabriz, and included air defensive systems that were activated. In response, Iran launched drones towards American targets at Camp Doha in western Kuwait, where Iran claims that the United States troops and military equipment are stationed. And at the same time, the Iranian military's Qatam and Anbiya central headquarters issued a threatening statement, declaring that if the United States attacks nuclear facilities, American interests and those of its allies, all the allies and their facilities as well, will be targets. What does it mean? It means that the United States Air Force worked extremely hard last night, primarily neutralizing more of the defensive capabilities that the Revolutionary Guards still had left. The Iranian military is now almost completely blind. Even before tonight's wave of strikes, President Trump issued an intriguing threat when he declared that the United States would most likely strike the mountain of Pickaxe. This is a nuclear facility underground very soon. Trump said that the United States would strike that area very soon with tremendous force, referring to the fortified underground compound near the Natanz enrichment facility. He said, "There is nothing that they can do about it." Normally, I would not say something like that, but if I thought that they were capable of doing something, I would not say it, end quote, by Trump. This site is believed to be Iran's safest and most heavily protected nuclear facility. It has carved approximately 100 meters underneath the ground, and according to the American Institute of Science and International Security, it may be even deeper than that. According to expert assessments, once the facility is converted for operational use, its level of protection could allow Iran to use it to break out towards a nuclear weapon, even while under attack. That makes it one of the most strategically significant locations for the future of Iran's nuclear project. Washington is expected to decide in the coming days whether to expand the campaign in Iran and perhaps even return to a full-scale fighting. American officials said that if the move is approved, the attacks will be broader and more intense. They did not rule out strikes against nuclear facilities or targets in major cities, including Tehran. Those officials also said that if the war is renewed, Israel would be highly likely to join the strikes. Trump's threat triggered a counter-threat from Tehran. Iran declared that any attack on its nuclear facilities would be considered an expansion of the war and would be met with attacks against the American interests and those of its allies. A statement published by the Iranian state media said that in such a case, all interests of the United States, as well as those of its allies and supporters, will become targets of the powerful attacks by the armed forces of the Islamic Republic. A short time ago, the Revolutionary Guards published a response to President Trump's remarks, addressing the defensive capabilities of Iran's nuclear facilities. They claimed that the fortified facility inside the mountain is protected at an extremely high level, and that even the bombs used in the strikes on Fordo and Natanz would not be effective against it. Tehran also threatened that any additional strike would be met with a severe response. But, as Amir says, for 11 days now, every morning, this has been their standard threat. Look, despite months of heavy bombardment and American and Israeli declarations that Tehran's infrastructure had been destroyed, satellite imagery and intelligence are revealing the rapid methods that are used by the Iranian engineering teams. Revolutionary Guards personnel have managed to remove debris, reopen blocked tunnels, and resume launching missiles towards the American bases, all in the middle of an intense military campaign. Today, we will show you how they're doing all of this. And meanwhile, in Lebanon, the campaign against the Hezbollah terrorist organization appears to be intensifying. While the IDF continues to strike Hezbollah's terrorist infrastructure in southern Lebanon, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has presented United States President Donald Trump with a comprehensive operational plan intended to place all weapons in the country under the control of state institutions and end Hezbollah's independent military status. According to the report, Aoun presented the plan during his meeting with Trump in the Oval Office. The document details the security and the military steps required from both sides, along with the role that Beirut is asking the United States to play. The plan proposes beginning with deployment of the Lebanese army in several villages in the southern part of the country, alongside changes in the deployment of Israeli forces or their gradual withdrawal from those areas. According to the plan, the Lebanese army would be responsible for ensuring that the areas that it entered are free of Hezbollah fighters, military infrastructure, and weapons depots. Security and military responsibility would gradually be transferred exclusively to the Lebanese army. This is in order to prevent the return of armed forces that are not under the authority of the state. And we will soon examine all the aspects of the agreement between Israel and Lebanon. And in recent months, the Hamas terrorist organization has been leading a broad effort to strengthen its ties with clan leaders and muhtars throughout the Gaza Strip, with the goal of reestablishing its power in the civilian arena. And at the same time as these efforts on the ground are taking place, Hamas, the Palestinian terrorist organization in Gaza, has also completed a change at the top of its leadership. The day before yesterday, the organization announced that Khalil al-Haya had been selected as the head of the political bureau of the Hamas terrorist organization after defeating Khaled Mashhad, who reportedly ran against him. We will soon bring you all the details, including how the IDF is continuing to operate against the terrorist organization in Gaza. So, as you can see, we have a lot ahead of us. Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto. Mati Shoshani is currently on a short vacation, and this is Boots on the Ground, where we bring you the full truth about what's happening in Israel and about the war against Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. And just before we begin, I want to call on you to continue spreading the truth. Share our content with as many people as possible. Click on the subscribe button, and most importantly, do not forget to look for me, Yair Pinto, and for Mati Shoshani on our social media accounts, so you can see life through our eyes, what it's like to live in Israel, especially now under this war. I bet that in recent shows, you've seen me wear multiple kinds of boots on the ground shirts, black, gray, white. We have all kinds of merchandise on our shop, shop.tbnisrael.com. And I would recommend for all of you to check it out. First of all, it's cool stuff. I like to wear them myself a lot. And second of all, it's a great way to stand with Israel, to help us share the truth, to not be afraid, and also to help us at TBN Israel to create more content. So I encourage you to check out our online store at shop.tbnisrael.com. And we have also a complete Boots on the Ground set with a bundle if you enter the coupon code BOTG set. Again, that's BOTG set, and then you get $9 off of this complete Boots on the Ground bundle. Try it out. I'm also curious to see what you think, so let me know in the comments what do you think about our online store at shop.tbnisrael.com. So let's continue. North of Kermashach, Iranian engineering teams are reopening entrances to underground missile bases that American and Israeli aircrafts buried beneath the earth and shattered concrete. Trucks are clearing access roads, heavy machinery is removing debris, and launch crews are returning to tunnels that were declared disabled only months ago. So those restored sites are again supporting attacks on American forces all across the region. How much of Iran's missile force was destroyed? And how much was simply trapped underground until engineers could dig it out? This is the weakness in attacking what Iran calls its missile cities. A bomb can collapse a portal and destroy the buildings above the ground, or block the road that is used by mobile launchers. But unless it reaches the chambers deeper inside, missiles, command rooms, fuel systems, and transporter erector launchers, they still may survive. The recovery work follows a particular sequence. Crews reopen a narrow path, inspect the tunnel, restore electricity and communications, and then move a launcher outside long enough to fire. The attack on Mawfaq Salti Air Base in Jordan showed these results. Iranian missiles and drones reached a base supporting American operations and killed 3 United States service members. Iran still operates weapons designed for different ranges and flight paths. The Khaybar Shikan and the Fatah can reach roughly 900 miles, a lot longer. The Qiyam-1 covers about 500 miles, while shorter range systems threaten nearby bases. Pavech cruise missiles and Shahad 136 attack drones approach at lower altitude, forcing defenders to divide their attention. This changes the discussion around Pickaxe Mountain. Closing an entrance may delay work, but Iranian engineers have shown that buried portals can be reopened. Keeping a hardened nuclear complex unusable would require surveillance and follow-up attacks against excavation equipment, restored power, ventilation, and new access routes. The mission would continue after the first strike package returns home. The same principle is shaping the campaign against Hezbollah. Destroying a launcher or a warehouse matters, but the organization survives if weapons, money, and trained personnel continue crossing the Syrian border. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun presented President Trump with a plan connecting the Israeli withdrawal to immediate Lebanese army developments. The army would enter selected areas in southern Lebanon, clear Hezbollah fighters, weapons depots, tunnels, and positions, and prevent the organization from returning after the Israeli troops leave. Aoun is asking Washington for equipment, funding, logistics, and training. Lebanon cannot demand that Hezbollah surrender an independent army while the state's own military lacks the resources to replace it. Washington is examining three difficult paths. The first would vet and train the Lebanese units for operations in the south. The second would use Syria to close the land corridors and confront Hezbollah near the border. The third would depend on Israel to continue dismantling the organization through airstrikes and ground operations. None offers a quick solution. The Lebanese army faces internal divisions. Syrian involvement revives memories of 29 years of Syrian control in Lebanon. An Israeli campaign that conducted alone could require years of fighting and, in the most extreme scenario, a far wider occupation. The pilot areas will show whether the diplomatic plan has a military substance in it. Lebanese troops must deploy as Israel withdraws, controls the roads, search the terrain, and remain after international attention moves elsewhere. So Israel will watch for armed men returning at night, reopen tunnels, and weapons that are appearing again inside civilian buildings. Some of that infrastructure is hidden in places that no army wants to enter. Israeli forces say that Hezbollah used cemeteries in southern Lebanon to conceal shafts, weapons, and underground positions. Near Arnon, close to the Beaufort area, engineers uncovered a tunnel reportedly extending for about 2/3 of a mile. It contained movement routes, command areas, living spaces, and weapons storage beneath sensitive civilian ground. Hezbollah counted on Israel and the hesitation to operate around graves and religious sites. But once those locations became military infrastructure, Israeli engineers used armored bulldozers, explosives, and detailed mapping to expose and collapse the network. What you see here on YouTube is only part of the story. Get a closer first-hand report, behind-the-scene moments, and stories of faith, resilience, and hope from Israel here by going to tbn.org/journeys/boots or text boots to 316-316 for direct updates from TBN Israel with Mati Shoshani and me, Yair Pinto, reporting from the ground about what's happening here, God's miracles, God's faithfulness, and how he uses Israel in this situation. So if you want to hear the truth, help us share it and pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We call on you to go to tbn.org/journeys/boots and be part of the community. Now let's get back to the news, because the situation is always very, very difficult. The pressure on the Hezbollah terrorist organization is growing. This is also along the Syrian border. Despite public denials of intervention inside Lebanon, security officials in Damascus, Syria, are preparing plans to act against the Hezbollah terrorist organization. Senior security bodies have reportedly been told to block the organization from rebuilding positions and supply lines connected to Syria. The change is already visible at the border. Customs officers at the Jedidat Yabus stopped a vehicle that was traveling towards Lebanon and found 226 RGC fragmentation grenades hidden in secret compartments. One suspect was arrested. Syrian authorities has recently reported stopping another shipment of weapons and advanced missiles moving through the Iraqi-Syrian route towards Lebanon. One seizure will not disarm the Hezbollah terrorist organization, but it shows that the road is no longer politically protected. Iran once moved weapons through Iraq and Syria with help from friendly security structures. The new government in Damascus now views that network as a challenge to its own authority. This is why the Lebanese front belongs inside the wider war with Iran. Tehran invested in an armed corridor reaching the Mediterranean. Washington, Jerusalem, Beirut, and Damascus are now trying to break separate sections of that corridor at the same time. The Arab states are divided over how far the campaign should go. Some Gulf officials argue that airstrikes and maritime pressure will not force Iran to release its grip on Hormuz. Harder ideas include an operation against Karag Island, the hub through which most Iranian crude exports are loaded. Others, led by Qatar, want the fighting stopped. They fear that the larger campaign, especially with Israeli participation, would direct Iranian missiles towards Gulf power stations, desalination plants, airports, and energy terminals. Several governments may cooperate quietly on radar tracking and air defense, while publicly asking Israel to remain outside of the American-Iranian battle. For now, Israel also prefers that arrangement. The United States continues wearing down Iran, while the IDF prepares to enter after an Iranian attack or as part of a broad, coordinated operation. Israeli officials do not want a limited move that adds another front without changing the strategic picture. A longer-term American idea targets Iran's geographic leverage rather than only the military sites. New land corridors and pipelines could move Gulf energy through Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and Israel towards the Mediterranean Sea. Existing infrastructure could form part of the route, but major sections would still require investment, security, guarantees, and political agreements. This is where the Abraham Accords could become an operational network instead of a diplomatic headline. Gulf producers would gain another export route, while the countries along it would share a financial interest in protecting the same infrastructure. It cannot solve today's crisis, but it can warn Tehran that dependence on Hormuz may decline over time. Iran's regional network is also being challenged in Gaza. Hamas announced that it was dissolving its governing body to make room for a technocratic administration, but at the same time, it's working through clan councils, neighborhood committees, and local muhtars to install loyal figures inside the system that expected to replace it. Access to aid and help resolving family disputes are being used to preserve influence without displaying the previous government structure. So Hamas has selected Khalil El-Hayat to head its political bureau after an internal contest with Khaled Mashal. Israel continues targeting commanders involved in the October 7th massacre and in attacks planned during the ceasefire. The IDF confirmed the assassination of Asma Kamal Shahada Abu Tim, which is a Hamas cell commander who took part in the assault on Nir Oz, an Israeli community, and in the abduction of Nurit Koper, Amiram Koper, and Alex Dansiag. The military says that he continued promoting attacks against Israeli troops and civilians, and Israel is also constructing a barrier along the area known as the Yellow Line. More than 14 kilometers of earthen berm now separate the territory that is held by Israel forces and the rest of the Gaza Strip. So the barrier provides observation, warning time, and a clear defensive boundary, while negotiations remain stalled. Iran is reopening missile tunnels, Hezbollah is protecting its weapons network, and Hamas is trying to preserve political control under a new civilian structure. The next stage will reveal whether the United States and Israel can keep those systems disconnected long enough to change the regional balance, or whether they will reappear under new names before the next war begins. So, keep spreading the truth, follow us, and most importantly, do not forget to hit that subscribe button here on our YouTube channel. Yeah, that's how you help us. Also, leave a comment, let me know where you're watching from, why it's important to stand, pray, and share the truth about what's happening in Israel. This is a spiritual war. I call on all of you to unite in prayer. Pray for God's will to be done. How do you do that? Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. How do you do that? You go and you pray for the people, for wisdom to the leaders, for the children, for the IDF servicemen, for the United States Marines and naval personnel that are here in this region, for the pilots, for everybody. Pray for our enemies as well. That's a hard one. Not to succeed. Pray for them to have a change of heart and start following God. And keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.